This is a Pele Media podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in again to Goonies Minute. Goonies Minute is the fan podcast where we carefully explore the movie Goonies minute by minute. I'm Brady.
And this is Chris.
We're here today to cover minute number 42 of the Goonies. Now, before we get started, Chris, you have a little information for our local listeners. A little something you got going on.
Tonight, Lava Cantina does their Ladies' Night karaoke. I will actually be hosting.
You're hosting.
Yeah, so I'm going to be on stage with the mic. So anybody that's interested in that or wants to have a chance to meet one of these Goonies Minute
one
guys.
Of the Goonies Minute hosts.
Maybe I'll even get you out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I am definitely going to be there. So
it's going to be a good time. So it's
awesome.
the Lava Cantina, and it's the Perkins Row.
That's right. Ooh,
Lava
fancy.
Cantina, because remember
Perkins
that
Row.
one time you went to the wrong
don't
one.
say it. Okay, I'll say it. So Lava Cantina is this really swanky club, like kind of restaurant bar type thing.
It's more of a restaurant,
Yeah.
I think, but they have
really
some
cool
good
bar.
live events.
They do. They have really good live
good
events.
margaritas and
Oh, the best. So anyway, you say go
Come
to
stop
Lava
on by.
Cantina. I go to the one that's like 30 minutes away. And a friend of mine who's a maitre d' is like, no, idiot, they're at the nicer one in Perkins Row. So I had to go all the way there.
and I made sure to announce that to the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, you did. You did. You
So-
absolutely did.
But anyway, I'll know something that's a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
Let's get into the minute.
Okay. In the previous minute, Mikey, Mouth, and Bran discovered what appears to be a secret passageway under the fake fireplace. Meanwhile, Data found some kind of large machine which he has switched on. At 42 minutes, Bran kicks through the covering of the passageway. Mouth comments that it's the start of a tunnel. As all the parts of the large machine Data just turned on begin to kick into high gear, he notices what the machine appears to be for. The machine begins to print some designs onto sheets of paper. Data picks one of them up. On the paper is 3 $50 bills. He begins to excitedly repeat that they are $50 bills. The machine is a counterfeit money printer. As he begins to scream that they have found the solution to saving the Goondocks, the rest of the gang excitedly run over to take a look at the money. After realizing that the bills are fake, everyone begins to tear up the pages in disappointment. At that moment, Steph runs over with the newspaper she has just found, and on the front page are the mugshots of each of the Fratellis. They realize who it is, and that they're in serious trouble. And thus ends minute 42 of the Goonies. All right, so we've got some, really interesting stuff going on right here. We haven't seen a whole lot from Data in the last several minutes, really. And he's about to discover something that would instantly kind of save the day and fix it would be an immediate solution to the entire problem of the foreclosure, and they wouldn't have to go any further into harm's way to solve this problem. But I am going to get into that perspective on it because I know that you've got some stuff to go over first with this.
Yeah, it starts off, they break through the fireplace boards, and then Data says this machine's on. And for the first time in a while, not only is Data involved in a big way, but we hear that music again.
Yeah.
We haven't heard that in a while. And he sees, $50 bills basically being printed on sheets of paper, and everybody walks over. But let me just tell you something. Even when I was 8, 9 years old, I never thought that was a legitimate $50 bill.
Yeah, just because it doesn't look like
it. It doesn't look like it. I never thought, even if it was counterfeit, that would be realistic. Maybe, I don't know if it's because I'm just that much smarter than everybody else. But I never thought that would be a viable option. Another thing, if that was the treasure they were thinking about, is there any way that One-Eyed Willie was printing $50 bills and put that machine there? Okay, obviously this is a counterfeit machine that the Fratellis have. I assumed it was the Fratellis or whoever else was doing bad stuff there. I would assume that it can be a legitimate counterfeit machine if they had the right type of paper. Obviously that paper was really regular white paper. It was printing black on it. It just did not look real. So I don't know how anybody with any sense of intelligence whatsoever, and those kids were older than me at the time, could have thought that, but maybe in a desperate situation they might have thought that it was a possibility.
Well, there could be that.
It's not even two-sided. That's another thing. So Brant dispels that pretty quick.
Yeah. I think that that's just kind of a flub on the part of the filmmakers. They could have made a better looking prop, and they didn't. But in terms of like
they could have.
That's asking
the print should have been. I mean, for that big old machine, man, if they could have come out with something that looked pretty real, man, then that just seemed like that'd be much more believable.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No,
it aggravated me, to be honest, and it always has, and it still does to this day.
I can see that. Well, here's my thought: the counterfeit machine poses a dilemma. It represents like an instant solution to their problem, right. The foreclosures and everything. We don't have to go any further at all. We've got this money, be it counterfeit or not. This is going to save the day, but that kind of takes away from the integrity of the quest. Sure. And I say we as in the Goonies, whatever, mainly Mikey. We're just going to stick with Mikey. He has got to make the effort to solve the entire problem and not have it handed to him. He cannot just sit here, take this counterfeit money and say, okay, problem solved. And that's assuming that they get away with it and no one ever catches them. No, for him, it's about the fight and the journey to do this, to save the situation by finishing this quest. And it's even more than that. It's, it has to go beyond just stopping the foreclosure, like I said. It's about being the person to have finally found One-Eyed Willie's treasure. Brand says earlier that there's been a bunch of people to try and find this thing. We even saw Chester Copperpot was one of them, so there's proof that this has been sought. And no one's ever found it. Mikey sees himself as the person who is going to finish this thing. He's going to be the first person to find the treasure, to find One-Eyed Willie, to find the ship, and prove that it's all real. One, to prove all his brother and anybody else who's doubting him about this wrong, and also to prove it to his dad, I think. Right. We've gone over this, but he has got to, his plight, I think his inner plight is that he's got to solve the entire foreclosure problem by going through this whole mission, this whole quest, and not just having it handed to the solution.
He's got to do it, but he's got to do it right.
He's got to do it right. Yeah. And
I agree.
And so that's interesting. And okay, so we're sitting here kind of dogging the filmmakers for their not so convincing prop money, but I got to hand it to them for giving us this idea so subtly that it takes guys covering this movie minute by minute to figure that out. And maybe it's an obvious thing. I just never thought of it until now.
It makes perfect sense, and it legitimizes that whole process even more. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing was just make the prop better. They spared no expenses with an entire pirate ship.
Correct.
And filming on location in Astoria at these actual places, which that had to cost a lot of money as opposed to just going to sound stages for everything, which I would think would be less expensive instead of dragging people to Astoria. So, another thing I wanted to mention that you talk about paying attention to detail, I thought was interesting that they added in there after Brant is, ripping up the counterfeit money, right before Steph grabs the newspaper article, she actually picks up a rotary phone and checks it to see.
Really?
Yeah, and she tries to see if there's a dial tone, and she hangs it up, and then she grabs that newspaper article, and it says unemployment up, and she says, "I recognize these people." Fratelli's at it again, and then you hear Data say, "That's the guy from upstairs."
Yeah,
he's talking about Jake.
That's kind of making the entire clock here tick a little bit faster. Now there's proof that these are homicidal killers who have no problem killing children. Now these are children who have witnessed that they're criminals. And so, guys, we got to get out of here.
And they just interacted with them.
They just interacted with them.
So right now.
Exactly. So they've seen them. They've seen their faces. And here in just a second, they're going to come back, and we're going to see them, walking in the room overhead. So the stakes are really, really, really getting high, and that kind of all goes down in the next minute. So that's all I've got for this. I looked into the counterfeit machine and couldn't find any information on the type of counterfeit machine that it was. But I'm sure there's not a whole lot of information about money
I've got a couple of them back at my house.
Oh, yeah.
Mine are better than that, though.
Yeah, because they actually produce real-looking money.
That's right. But you got to get, counterfeit machines that print 1 in 5s. Because
non-sequential small bills.
No consecutive serial numbers. You see, that's the key, though. You want to get $1 in $5 bills, things like that. The people get too greedy with 50s and 100s.
You know all about this.
Well, I know that's what I would do if I was in that situation.
Exactly. All right, well, that is all that I have for this minute. How about you?
That's it.
Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today for Minute 42. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Minute 43. Believe it or not, those numbers are adjacent to each other. How about that? And until then, this is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we're here to remind you that Goonies never say die.
Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com. You've been listening to a Pele Media podcast. For premium content and exclusive podcasts, visit us at Patreon.com/Pele Media. Check us out on Facebook at Facebook.com/Pele Media, and follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/Pele Media.